Tom Lynch, United States Navy, Vietnam. Tom served in Vietnam in the early 70s. He's 18 years old, folks, in the Navy, but he was assigned and attached to the Marines, flying MedEvac helicopters out of Da Nang. Tells some tremendous stories of survival, the patient contacts he had and what he saw. Can you imagine what he saw at 18 years old? Like today's paramedic, you know, out in the EMS world. Tom's flying MedEvac's UH-1 Huey helicopters with that distinct wop-wop sound that all Vietnam veterans have come to know and to understand what that meant. A good thing or a bad thing when you heard a helicopter coming in. But Tom served, like I said, with the Marines, flying the MedEvac flights. They were the medical flights, and he just tells a great story, folks, and I'm happy to share this with you. These were what were called the Dustoff helicopters in Vietnam. This is a rare story. I would invite you to share this with family, friends, and other people in the military. You're going to learn a lot here. Tom, thank you for sponsoring your story, making it available for others to hear and to learn about what happened. When Tom came home from Vietnam, he tells a story. He was in San Francisco and how they threw trash on him. They probably spit and cursed at them. It was just a horrible homecoming, which a lot of our Vietnam veterans experience. It was one of the sad parts of our country, you know, these people that were doing these things, and where are they today? You know, you got to wonder. But we support our veterans. If we've learned anything from Vietnam, it's how to welcome our troops home today, folks. God bless you, Tom. Thank you for your patriotism, your service to our country, and happy belated Veterans Day. Folks, if you'd like to sponsor one of my stories, there's information in the video description below this video and in the comment section if you want to donate. Or you can go to larrycapetto.com and you can find information there to become a part of this work. Take ownership in what you're hearing. There's an accountability and a responsibility when we hear these stories, folks, and I hope you feel, I know it's tugging on a lot of your hearts, and I'm just looking for more people to come forward. Those that have supported my work, I'm grateful for you, and I hope more of you will consider doing so. Okay, God bless you. Thank you for watching, sharing, and subscribing to this channel, and I will talk to you again. The Navy.
That's correct.
Okay, give me, what was your MOS and your job during Vietnam then?
Well, during Vietnam, I was temporarily assigned to the Marines, and we flew medevacs out of Da Nang.
Okay. And how old were you when you went into Vietnam?
18 years old.
Okay. I'm going to ask you some questions about Vietnam in general, but before I do that, I'm real interested in what you did in Vietnam as far as the medevac helicopters. And just give me a little synopsis, give me an overview basically of what you did in and around that, and I'll get more specific as we get going. But
well, basically it was a medevac unit, and we just flew missions to go out and pick up the wounded and bring them back to the Da Nang.
Okay,
and then from there they were flown out to other hospitals.
Okay, but break it down. Describe just the geography of Da Nang and what that was as far as the war and where exactly you went, who was fighting, and what was going on.
Oh, well, obviously it was just as a lot of people have heard, there was a lot of fighting going on. We made multiple runs, flew multiple missions a day. The actual fighting, I wasn't, I guess you'd say, supposed to be doing any, because I had a very specific task. However, there was a time that you know, we get into some pretty hot situations. We go into a landing zone or an LZ, and the LZ, it'd be green, and in other words, safe, and just in a matter of seconds, it would be red, and we'd be taking hostile fire.
Now, you've been in combat before or around that, or was this all new to you? Or
My first time.
okay, and say you weren't scared is an understatement, but I mean, you know, I talked to a guy earlier today, and he told me that the first 2 weeks in Vietnam, he didn't think he was going to make it, and he said, but after that, something kicked in, and he was okay. I mean, did that happen to you, or
The very
baptism under fire? What, I mean, what happened to you?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Baptism under fire. I too had my doubts if I was going to make it out alive, and considering what I had to do, I was constantly picking up people who were less fortunate. They were actually wounded, and in some cases they were deceased. Yes, I had those doubts often, and more often than not. And but I never recall having that crossing that threshold to where, well, feeling everything's going to be all right. It was scary right up to the time I left.
Why did you join the military?
And that was my choice. I wasn't drafted. I joined. My dad was military. My brother. It's tradition, I guess, but I actually look forward to it.
Had you studied at all, or had family members that maybe were in World War II or Korea or anything like that?
My father was in World War II, and my brother was in the Navy during Grenada. So.
Did you talk to your father at all about World War II? Did he talk much about that? Or?
Yeah, we've had off and on conversations, and he did elaborate on some things, but not in great detail that I ever recall.
Because there was a sense of duty back then to serve their country. Did you feel that with Vietnam?
Yes, I did. I felt very proud to be serving my country.
What about all the things that were said maybe at that time, and we're looking back in retrospect, but as far as it being an unpopular war, did you go in there with that mentality, or did you feel like they did in World War II, you're going to serve our country?
I went in there with the mentality of serving the country, and it was the early 70s. I had friends that basically they thought I was crazy, but you know, this is what I chose to do. In a very short period of time, they realized that, well, no, it is okay, you know, and they did accept it, and not every day was a bed of roses over there, a field of roses. It was, again, I had questioned why I was even there a few times, but deep down, I knew why I was there. I just didn't really want to be there in that particular situation.
Can you break it down a little bit for me as far as one of the missions that you flew on? Was there a more difficult mission, you know, as far as, you know, what you experienced? And were you flying, which helicopters were you flying?
I was attached to a UH-1 squadron, MedEvac squadron, and that was our sole purpose.
What kind of training did you have to go into a situation? What kind of training?
I had some minimal previous training, and medical training, that is. That was basically it. Again, this was just a temporary assignment of duty, and looking back on it, I think they were just grasping for straws. You know, somebody that could go in and pick up the injured and get them out of there. And I think they were just looking for people to do that. Not to say that, I mean, there were some highly trained individuals over there. I had the minimal type of training, and that's about as far as it went.
Were you like an EMT as today?
Yes, yes.
So you
along that level.
So can you describe one of the missions? You said you flew a lot of sorties. Tell me about one, what you did, getting under the helicopter, in flight, and then actually landing.
Well, we would get our call or our mission to go, and of course I wasn't flying them. I was only flying in them. And I would make sure I had all my supplies and everything, and we had a Marine gunning that flew with us, and would take off and go to a designated point, pick up the injured, and transport them back. That's on a normal routine. For the most part, uneventful, except for a few times. One particular one was when we just picked up two bodies, or 2 souls, deceased, and we were transporting them back to Da Nang. And we were probably about 3 to 4 clicks from the landing strip at Da Nang, and small arms fire. We started taking small arms fire, and well, that stuff about auto rotation, it's a figment of somebody's imagination. That we plummeted and crashed. We all pretty much walked out with minor scrapes and bumps and bruises, and we were quickly picked up by another group of soldiers that saw us go down, and come to find out, and again, I was new there, but come to find out that that's pretty commonplace. Kind of gave a new perspective on it.
And you're 18, you said?
18 years old.
How long were you in Vietnam?
I arrived there just probably right at the end of November, and I left April 14th, 1973.
What do you think was the most difficult thing maybe about what you experienced as far as the MEDEVAC missions, or just in general in Vietnam? Is there a more difficult memory that you have of something that you experienced?
Well, there was another time that the mission didn't go quite as well. And again, it was small arms fire that brought the helicopter down, and this time we crashed pretty hard. I got banged up pretty good, just bruised, dislocated the left shoulder, and so forth. But the pilot, the officer, was killed, and that made it pretty tough because, you know, one of our team members now, and there wasn't much that I could do about it at that point in time. And anyway, it was shortly after that when, when I left Vietnam.
What brought that helicopter down?
Small arms fire again.
What's that like, being shot at in a helicopter? I mean,
very spooky. The skin of a helicopter is very thin, as a lot of folks here in the air cap know, but some of the helicopters were reinforced or had plates put strategically in the floorboard or on the floor of the helicopter to prevent it from, well, to hopefully deter, you know, bullets. And just so happens when we were in, did have that armor, makeshift armor in places, but from what I understand, we took around in oil coolers that second time, and the canopy filled up with smoke, and we basically again plummeted, but you couldn't see the ground coming. It all happened so fast.
Was that Marine gunner shooting?
No, he wasn't. Not at that time. He wasn't. He's been known to get a little trigger happy at times, but this particular time it caught us all by surprise.
So again, the crew on the helicopter there's a pilot,
co-pilot, gunny, and myself.
You were the only medical person on the plane?
The gunny had some medical training also,
now,
or a medical experience anyway.
okay, you know, visually in my mind, I don't have a lot to draw on, but I mean, you're coming into a landing zone. Is it why did they call it a hot LZ? Well,
they would the troops on the ground would designate the LZ, secure the perimeter, and they would set off a smoke flare. And green smoke means it was good. Red is probably not a good idea to hang around there too long.
So would you actually land or not?
No, we would actually land. Yeah, we'd have to land.
Did you hop out?
Yes, we'd have to hop out. I would meet the field medic out there, and you know, and he'd quickly give me a rough evaluation of the patient's condition, essential, you know, pack that he may have had with him, and his equipment, and load the patient and his equipment and belongings that he had with him at the time in the helicopter. And sometimes we had to pretty rapidly, especially when the you know, the conditions were less favorable. And one particular case, we had a field medic. I was always at the head of the litter because I was just a few inches taller than the gunny. And but for some reason, this field medic decided to go with us to take this patient back to the helicopter. And Gunny was on the front of the litter, and this other medic was on the back. So I just picked up the patient's M16 and his pack that he had, and we're running. And we were probably less than 10, 15 feet from the helicopter when the Army medic, field medic, got shot right in the side and came out the other side. Killed him, you know, he was dead right there. And that was kind of unique. I mean, scary, very scary. That was very close. Responded or reacted and picked up the litter with the gunny, and we got him loaded. By that time, the field unit that was out in the field came and picked up their medic, and evidently they had to load him on another helicopter.
Did you have a rifle or anything like yourself?
I had that M16. Yep. First time I ever shot one. First time I ever shot it. I was issued a .45, but I never used it. But I did use that M16 that day.
Is that helicopter like a Huey as far as the...
It is a Huey.
Okay, it is a Huey.
Yeah, it's UH-1. Very distinct sound.
Have you ever... Does it ever come back to you when you're around a helicopter, maybe in civilian life now as we're in, do you hear something, does it come back?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a sound that you just don't really forget.
I was at a Marine base last year, and one of the Marines flies Hueys. I guess probably today's, or I don't know if they make them anymore, but I was trying to get a flight on one of the Hueys, and I hope to have that at some point because I think they help tell the story. But I've been fascinated with how that helicopter was used to transport troops in and out of Vietnam and the wounded out, just like the Higgins boats were used in World War II to transport the troops into the beaches, the landing areas, and just there's just been a fascination with that. I don't know why, just that being used and the way it's being used. And I think I like what you guys are telling me versus the glamour of Hollywood, but really hearing the story of what it's really like from you guys, especially as I've talked to a lot of the World War II guys. So as I talk to you, I'm visualizing, I'm trying to go back with you and realize what you went through as a young man. Do you think about it at all now? I mean, is there reason to think about what happened with you in Vietnam?
Well, since we hang around with the American Legion, folks at the American Legion Riders, and Patriot Guard, we all have something in common there. And conversation to come up, and we get the opportunity to discuss it. And like many others, I didn't discuss it a whole lot in the past, and
Why?
I think some folks, it wasn't very popular war. It's like when we came back, I was on aboard ship. We were coming underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and they were throwing garbage on us. Welcome home.
I talked to the World War II guys, and it was so different in World War II. And then you look at Korea as almost a forerunner for Vietnam, and the mentality that the troops went into Korea with was a World War II mentality, and it seemed like there was a shift in the way we fight, and we saw that in Vietnam, and now today it's even different. But do you want the American people to feel sorry for you, or to really recognize what you've done? I mean, as heroes, or however you see yourself. Do you see yourself as a hero in any sense?
Not at all. Just did what I was supposed to do. But I think it's a good idea that everybody, whether they believe in the cause of the war and everything that we're in now, support the troops.
We saw such a united country back during World War II with the war effort. Everybody was involved, and yet the things have really changed and come a long ways from that. I want to get back to some of the MedEvac, but I want to ask you a question. And and again, this is based on my knowledge of Vietnam and what happened, but was there, with your group, was there drugs used in Vietnam? I mean, at any point, were you involved with that, or was that something that was happening, or?
Yes, drugs were used in Vietnam, and so was alcohol.
And during combat, behind the lines, or was it just something that, and why?
I would guess each individual would have their own reason. I guess the best explanation of that would be to take the edge off of the stressful situation that existed almost 24/7.
Do you think that when you came back, or when the veterans came back, were they debriefed of any sort, or was there something to help them deal with the stress, you think, back then?
The lack of support, you know, from the, and I'll say general community, wasn't very helpful at all. Debriefings, honestly, I don't recall any. You know, we got back, we had another assignment, another task to do, and didn't have much time to look back. We just had to continue doing the job that we were tasked to do.
Do you think that a reason a lot of the veterans have had problems from Vietnam was because of the drugs and or the lack of help as far as dealing with the stress of what they went through?
Well, I have to admit it was stressful. That would have to be on an individual type basis. You know, there's folks out there and leading very normal and productive lives out there, and there's some that take the stress a little differently, and maybe they're not as productive or successful in life. And that's on an individual basis.
How have you dealt with that as far as, you know, 35, 40 years later? I mean, has it been a problem with you at all, or?
I don't really believe so. I have experience. I've talked about it with my daughter, who's in the Air Force now. My son also, and no, I think I'm proud to have the experience and the knowledge and information I gained from it. Try and use it positively and productively.
Have you seen a movie that got it right with Vietnam, or are they all kind of?
Oh, they've all got, a majority of them have scenes that are probably more Hollywood than actualities, but they all have their finer points. The ones that I've seen, they do depict some of what I have witnessed in real life events over there, yes.
Is there a particular movie that maybe is, do you watch the movies? I mean, is that something you'd like to do, or?
Probably Full Metal Jacket would be one of them. Yeah.
As far as the MedEvac flights you said you flew many sorties in and out?
Yes, I did.
Were there certain areas that you'd go to all the time, or did you go to different areas?
Different areas all the time. I wasn't, being the medic, I wasn't privileged, you know, I didn't have to know. More important that the pilot and co-pilot knew where we were going and how to get us back. And most part, they did a fine job.
What was stressful about what you did? I mean, there's some obvious things, but was there something that was it the fear of the unknown, or just being shot, or just? Well,
it's, yeah, it's the fear of being shot or shot at in hopes that the, let's say the people working on the aircraft that I was flying in, hopefully they had a good day. Kept up with the maintenance records and that sort of thing. Hopefully the pilot, co-pilot, you know, they didn't have a chip on their shoulder that particular day. And again, we were a close team. We worked together. But unfortunately, you know, there was always that time we lost one, or you know, had to be replaced by another one. A lot of turnover, a lot of people coming and going.
And was there, you kind of answered, but there was a camaraderie that you shared with each
Yes.
other? Did you depend on one another?
With our lives, yes. Every day.
Was it difficult working with the wounded? I mean, did you work with them right on the scene, or did you just put them in the helicopter and?
Usually when I picked up the wounded, they were already, for the most part, they were probably, for the most part, they were already stabilized by the actual field medics out there. So by the time I got them, they were bandaged up. Maybe they had an IV going already. We would monitor vitals and that sort of thing to get them transported.
So it's kind of like the ambulance coming to the car crash, and maybe somebody had already done something and you transported them to
That's
the
correct.
hospital type.
That's correct. Monitor the vitals and do the best you can to maintain their stability until you get into a medical facility.
Well, to me, it's fascinating, the job that you had. I mean, that's just, to me, a very important job. And were there basically just gunshot wounds, or did they have artillery that they were using?
Basically, I'm trying to think of anything other than gunshot wound. Shrapnel, there was some shrapnel wounds, but gunshot wounds and shrapnel, I guess, was the biggest part of it. We did have a few fractures, but mostly it was gunshot wounds and shrapnel wounds.
Now you're fighting the North Vietnamese?
That's correct.
Viet Cong, the VC?
Yeah.
What else did you call them? Charlie? I mean...
Charlie, Gooks, VC. Yeah.
And
they had many names.
Why did we go to Vietnam?
It's
The short version.
the short version. Why did we go to Vietnam?
Why was America involved in Vietnam? What happened that triggered? Or was it an ongoing process maybe from...
Well, before, yes, but a civil war in that country, and to be politically correct, we were to support them, support the South Vietnamese to prevent the influx and spread of communism.
And the North Vietnamese invaded South Vietnam, is that what happened?
That's correct.
Seems like history's repeating itself a lot
Yes.
of times. Okay.
Well, the era that I was in was known as Linebacker 2. That was the mission that was going on at that particular time.
Tom, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is pretty much the good old USA. Where we're free to choose what we wish to do. And no hold barred.
Tell me about the price for freedom.
Well, that'd have to be the ultimate. Giving the life to protect it.
What would you tell a young person today who knows nothing about war, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and what would you tell them about the price for freedom and, the sacrifices that have been made in your case in Vietnam?
Yeah. Well, stay in school and pay special attention to their history teacher, history class, the history books. There's a lot of good information there. I guess if they were interested in going into the military, I could just give them my personal experiences and give them references of my son and daughter and my wife, who all were in the military. It was a good experience.
I met a Marine in Philadelphia in September at a 5th Marine Division reunion, and he's in his 80s, and he was on crutches, and like a little kid, I went up and asked him, I said, "What happened to your leg?" He said, "I lost my leg on Iwo Jima." And for 60 years, he's lived with the reminder that freedom's not free, and that there's a price to pay for our freedoms. Is that how you feel?
That is very true, yes. Yes, the price to pay is, in some cases, it could be just, going out there and serving your country if that's what that individual wishes to do. But again, to be in the military is a way to serve your country, but you can also serve your country and community in many other ways, and still supporting that need and support for freedom.
What does the American flag mean to you as a veteran?
Freedom, many prices that were paid to keep it that way. It means everything, I guess you might say. I fly it proudly. I display it proudly on my truck, home, uniform. Yes, means everything.
Have you been to Washington, D.C. and seen the Vietnam
Yes.
Memorial?
Yes, I have.
What was that like when you saw that?
Quite moving. Yes, it's I guess you could say it's larger than life, because there's a lot of life that was lost, a lot of lives that were affected, and even today, a lot of lives were affected. And it's memorialized, I guess you might say, by the wall. I've seen the traveling wall also, and it's equally as impressive. But going to Washington, D.C. and actually seeing it is quite an experience.
Were there any friends that were wounded or killed in Vietnam of yours?
Yes.
Did you find their names on the wall?
No, I didn't. I wasn't successful, no.
Why was it an unpopular war? You mentioned that. What was...
Well, that it was politically loaded. I guess some folks didn't understand why we needed to be there. And I don't really know that I understood 100% why we needed to be there. But the career I chose at that particular time, it was my job to be there. It's like doing anything else, we have a job to do and have to get it done. The reason why the war was so unpopular is, well, I guess the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and there's a lot of folks protesting and in large groups and numbers and so forth. Yeah, I saw them on TV, and I did wonder why they were doing, the protesting, and but yes, and I did understand that a lot of soldiers were being killed over there. But at the same time, it was a mission, and again, it was a voluntary mission.
You think the music of the generation had anything to do with the times or a reflection of Vietnam? I mean, you think about a lot of the music, and I'm talking about the 60s.
There's a lot of good music. Yeah, there's a lot of good music back then.
In the 70s, and just the way the country was at that time. You'd see the hippies and all this stuff going on, and you kind of wonder about, and if that was a reflection on, the times, and then the Vietnam War and all that, because I think a lot of people don't know a lot about Vietnam, what really happened, and I know there were a lot of good things that happened, yeah. I'm sure. Just like in Iraq, I think there's a lot of good things happening right now. But it's a very intriguing, I guess, piece of history. And what do you think the biggest difference was between World War II and the Vietnam War, the way it was fought?
Wow. Well, we had, I would say, military strategists during World War II only had conventional type weapons in warfare to deal with. Vietnam probably accelerated to a little higher sophistication of weapons in warfare, so the military strategists had to rely on old school, but yet incorporate the new technologies and so forth of back then. Today, it's a whole new different type of war, whole new strategies, and the men and women out there today need to be commended. They're doing a heck of a job.
You know, Tom Brokaw called the World War II generation the greatest generation, you know, the book he wrote. Do you think that was the greatest generation?
Yes.
Why?
Well, my dad was there too. Yeah, they again, it's the it's a world war too, just like the World War I. Ours was just Vietnam. You know, it wasn't a world war. Yeah, the World War had more support, more unity. That's not what I saw during Vietnam.
You mentioned you came back to San Francisco and they threw garbage at you?
Yes, we were going underneath the Golden Gate Bridge. They sure did.
Has anybody ever thanked you for what you did in Vietnam?
Yes.
Since?
Yes. I had the honor of being part of the color guard at the Cripple Creek POW MIA motorcycle rally, and we carried the Air Force flag in the honor of our daughter. Yeah, got a lot of thanks. Felt good.
I probably already asked this, but you're proud of being a Vietnam veteran.
Yes.
Proud of that fact.
Yes, I am.
Well, I want to thank you for what you've done for our country and what your family's done. You said you've got a military family. How old's your dad now?
He's deceased, but I think he'd be he'd be about 70. Let's see, 74 now. I think 75, somewhere around there.
And your daughter's in the military?
Yes, she is, over in Kunsan, South Korea.
Have you been back to Vietnam? Did you ever go back?
No.
You don't want to go back?
Nope. Nope, not at all.
I've talked to a lot of these Marines that fought at Iwo Jima, and it's kind of half, 50-50. Half of them would like to go, but others, they did their time there, basically,
Right.
and they don't want to go.
Yeah. No, I don't think I'd be interested in going back.
What do you think about World War II veterans? Do you ever meet them or see them?
Oh, yes, yeah. Bunch of great folks. My father-in-law is one of them also. Lives out in western Kansas, and great guy.
Well, I want to ask you to do one more thing that I've asked all the veterans to do since I started this project, and I hope you're going to consent to this, but can I have you give me a salute into the camera when I tell you?
You bet.
From where you're at? Okay. Hold on, let me get back up. Okay, sir, go ahead and give me a salute into the camera. Okay, thank you.